I'm going to record this as well. And people are raising their hand. Okay, here we go. Webinar chat. Well, I'm going to continue. It looks like the Q&A works. So for everyone online, if you want to ask questions, etc., then please do through Q&A, and Catherine will be able to see that. So when we're talking about AI in this context, there's a lot of different types of AI. And actually, artificial intelligence has been around for decades in various forms. What's different now is that unlike before, where you needed to be in systems, in programming, in technology to use AI, the interface into all these artificial intelligence machines is now you and an English language input, right? So I can just type in English, and that's effectively programming the computer, because the computer, the AI engine, which we'll talk about, takes that, whatever it is you've written in there, converts it into something it understands, which is programming, interrogates all the data that sits behind it, and then uses its internal program to come up and give you a response, right, in English. So that whole concept of I need to be able to do C++ coding, or I need to be able to do this, or I need to be able to do that, or I need to be a systems, that's all gone out the window. It's a little bit like the internet was back in the early 1990s. So for anybody who can remember the internet back in the early 1990s, Netscape, Mosaic, Explorer, the first version of Explorer, why were they so amazing? Well, they came out in the 90s, and they were amazing because they were graphical user interfaces. Before that, the internet had existed for about 40 years before that, right? But it was all, again, you needed to be a little bit geeky, a little bit nerdy in a lab as a PhD student, typically using the internet, and it was the graphical user interface that allowed people to go and do what we do. Same is true now with the engines that you can go and log into as you use artificial intelligence, and I'll talk about some of those, but then you can just key in English, and it takes it to a different level and makes it accessible to all of us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to have a conversation, right? So that's the context. We're also, about SCORE, we're a resource partner of the Small Business Administration, and we help small businesses through a variety of things that Catherine mentioned, so I won't repeat that here. Here's the agenda. I'm just going to go through it. There's a lot there. We'll get through it in good time. But I'm just not going to read the agenda. I'm just going to go into the actual large language models. So when we talk about our artificial intelligence, what we're talking about for purposes of small business owners and small businesses is something called large language models. These are the ones that are trained on a significant amount of the data, the internet, right, which is in and of itself a significant amount of data. And they are also called GPT. You've heard of ChatGPT as a company or as a product from a company, generative pre-trained transformers. The key is they're able to comprehend, generate, and interact with texts that mimic us. So that's the key difference between what happened before and what happens now. So you provide a question, or sometimes also a prompt, and you can also make an attachment, provide a URL, and various other sort of things, which is in effect, as I mentioned, a form of programming ChatGPT, if we're talking about ChatGPT, right? That input text or a prompt or a question, typically in the industry it's called prompting, is broken down by the machines into little units called tokens. You don't need to get into that, but just understand that everything you type in, the computer's taking pieces of it, then converting each piece into something it can use, right? And it analyzes the context of your prompt by considering the preceding and the following words, which is important because what you write in the prompt, in the question online, will give you, if you ask the same question 3 different ways, you'll get 3 different answers. Very important to understand like that. So when you're talking with somebody and someone says, I don't understand what you're saying, can you rephrase the question? It's like that, right? So you have to ask it the right things in the right way to get the response you're actually looking for. And there's lots of large language models out there. So a lot of people have heard of OpenAI, right? Which is, well, you might have heard of ChatGPT. It's a product from a company called OpenAI. And there's a lot of press about OpenAI, but there's other ones too. Perplexity, Gemini, Copilot from Microsoft. There's a lot of different engines out there. We're not at SCORE suggesting one is better than the other, but just to keep things simple and to make the sort of presentation flow a bit more smoothly as we go through this this evening, I'm going to focus on ChatGPT. And if there's a bit of time, I'll also show you a bit of Perplexity. I use both of those a lot because they work for me. And prompt creation, sometimes called prompt engineering, right, is a skill and a science and a little bit of an art. So as you're learning how to use these tools, don't forget that these tools are constantly evolving. If you're reading the literature about this and the press releases and all that sort of stuff, OpenAI came out with this and OpenAI came out with that, and ChatGPT has been upgraded with this, and all these things are model. So they're changing as well. All these models and everything that you're going to be leveraging and using are changing whilst you're learning it. Right? So we're driving the car and changing the tire all at the same time. So that's why trial and error becomes a really important sort of facet of all this. There's a bit of context. This is going through to 2022 because that was the latest statistics I could get online. But the dotted red line here, it's the global investment in artificial intelligence. It's cumulative over $1 trillion. Now, what that means is it's unlikely to go away, right? People don't invest that much money and go, oh well, forget it, throw it away. So one way or another, all of these companies that are investing all of this money in things like artificial intelligence are going to figure out how to use it. Now, the uses span pretty much everything that we do. So we're talking about small businesses, but healthcare, you can imagine how healthcare is interested in adopting this as well. BFSI is banking, financial services, and insurance. Clearly, they use it. Legal, you've seen some weird cases out there where lawyers have used ChatGPT but didn't vet their answers and got it wrong, because I'll talk about misinformation and all that sort of stuff. Retail, you could easily imagine. Advertising, media, automotive, agriculture. A lot of agriculture uses AI for when should you pick the grapes, when should you do this, when should you do that, what's the what feed should I use, etc. Manufacturing. So it's used pretty much across the board by large corporations, small businesses, and pretty much everything in between, and increasingly being used more and more by governments. So the most commonly reported use of the tools within all these different industry verticals: marketing and sales, product and service development, and service operations. They're the 3 key sort of use cases. There are other use cases, and they will continue to evolve. So it's being adopted. There's a lot of money. It's being adopted by multiple industries, and it's being used in ways that you can use it in the forms of marketing and sales, which small businesses are interested in, products and service development, and operations, right? And as I mentioned, there's lots and lots and lots of AI engines out there. And here's a few. I'm not going to read this. It's a bit of eye candy, right? The ones in light blue are the ones you may have heard of. OpenAI, or ChatGPT, Gemini, DALL-E for graphics, Microsoft Copilot you might have heard of, Perplexity, Anthropic, Claude, you might have heard of these, right? And there are others, there's hundreds of, right? And they're constantly new ones, and I'm sure not all of these will survive the course of business development. Some of them are small businesses themselves, and as you know, some of those survive and some won't survive as well. But there's lots of them, and some of them are backed by very large players like ChatGPT, like Copilot, like Google's Gemini, Bard, etc. So let's start talking now about what are their capabilities and what sort of limitations do they have. They excel at large languages. So all of these models have one thing in common. They're called large language models, LLMs, right? Because it's all about language. It's all about writing English or French or Spanish or Japanese or German or any language you want. I said English because obviously that comes to my mind, but the Spanish speakers, you can type in Spanish. It will accept pretty much any language out there. But they're large language models. And they're good at understanding data analysis, pattern recognition, and content creation, complex problem solving. They're very good at being able to do these sort of tasks, but they're limited because they do include potential biases. And I'll actually go through a very practical example of what I mean by that. They have limited, some of them have limited knowledge up to certain dates. So they were trained on data up until date X, and we're in date Y, and date Y is later than date X. So they don't know what happened after they got cut off. But some of them are updated instantly, right? So you have to be aware of that. And you need to be pretty precise in what it is you want out of the model, out of the engagement. You have to be very clear, not just in the question, but how do you want the answer? Do you want it in a table? Do you want it in a Word document? Do you want it in bullet points? Do you want it numbered? Do you want it in the first person or the second person? How do you want to structure the answer and present the answer to you? You need to do that. And there are ethical considerations, right? So privacy, we'll talk a bit about privacy, plagiarism. I've already cited one example about some lawyers that were in the newspapers because they basically plagiarized. Copyright, hallucinations, I'll talk about that. And mitigating bias. How do you know there's bias and how do you stop it from happening, right? So that's some capabilities and limitations. So let's get into the prompting itself. So this is the theory part before we get into, let's go online and play around with a question or two, right? It's a skill, it's nuanced, of crafting queries or statements to try and get the answer you're looking for. It will give you the answer, but you want to ask it a question in such a manner that will give you the answer that you're trying to get, not some other answer it thinks you're asking, right? So that's the very important reason why you need to be able to be pretty concise. So they should be direct and precise. So you want to avoid ambiguity. You want to provide some context, and you want to clearly define what it is you want it to produce, in what format, which I've sort of alluded to. Now let's write a post about technology. Well, it could be pretty broad, right? Well, what's it going to come back with? Who knows? Technology could mean anything to anyone, right? Versus a bit more context. Write a 500-word blog post discussing the impact of artificial intelligence on modern healthcare, focusing on patient outcomes and data privacy. One's a lot more specific. And you can just imagine if I asked a general room of people online, what do you think about technology? Everybody would have a different point of view. What is technology, etc. So I get lots of different types of, versus if I was sit here and ask you, how do you think artificial intelligence is going to impact the quality of healthcare for you as a recipient from healthcare providers? That's much more specific. We might all disagree on how the AI impact is going to be, but we're all going to be talking about AI in healthcare. Right? So it's very important to provide that context. Analyze sales data versus use Python, which is a statistical programming language. You don't even have to know Python. You could just say, you don't even have to say use Python. You could just simply say, analyze these 20 to 2022 sales data from the attached spreadsheet of my sales data and identify any trends in monthly revenue growth and predict my third quarter results, my third quarter revenue. And it will come up with something. When I say it will come up with something, it doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It will come up with something. And part of what we need to do as the owners of, we're going to take the output of this and we're going to use this output in our business plan, in our contact strategy for our customers, in our supply management, in whatever we do. So we have to own the outcome. So it's on us as the user to validate the outputs, but it will give you an output. And this type of construction will help of the question will help give you a more pertinent, relevant output, right? So some things that you don't want to do, overly broad or vague, that's what I've said, right? Assuming the AI understands implicit context or references not clearly stated in the prompt. So if it's a story you're creating, you want to help it with a narrative that you're writing on, or something that you want to do, you need to provide it context. So if I'm trying to figure out, I want to look at, I want to buy a shop, or I want to rent a shop front somewhere, right? If I'd simply say, can you scan the environment for shops that are available for commercial rent? Versus we're in Danbury, Connecticut, as we give this here in the Danbury Library. Versus I want to find a retail outlet for the goods I sell, which are computers, could be anything, right? I want it near the main street with a lot of walk-through traffic and near car parking for the drive-through traffic. I don't want to spend more than X per month. I'd like to have a glass front. So you're giving it context. What's available? Please scan the available advertisements and tell me what's available. That's going to give you a better response than find me a shop front, right? And that's clear that, because if I asked you that, you'll go, David, what are you talking about? Shop front, what are you selling? Who's the audience? We'd be going through that process. So he doesn't know any of this unless you tell him. So you have to provide context. And then as you get more and more involved here, giving an example is great. So I started giving examples in the description of my shop front. I wanted to have a glass front. I want it to be near a car park. I'm describing what type of shop I want, right? It could be describing anything that you want to be doing. And then iterative refinement of the question. So the other thing to work through and think about, you ask it a question, nice tight question that we've been going through. Great, that's fantastic. It gives you a response, but you want to ask a follow-up question. So how many times you've been in a conversation with a friend, with a colleague, and you ask them a question, they give you an answer, and then you go, but what about? Right? There's always a follow-up question. Well, you need to treat the large language model exactly the same way. You ask it follow-up questions, and we'll do that. I'll show you how to do that. And we'll talk more about the ethics because it's there. So we want to steer the AI, and basically, if say you want to write a press release, let's just say you want to write a press release for your business, we're going to actually do a bit later on, you can say, hey, ChatGPT, Perplexity, whatever the model is that you're using, pretend you're a PR expert. So you're giving it context to focus on PR. So it has access to the internet, right? That's a big place. And in the internet, there's all sorts of stuff, but there's a lot of stuff on PR. And therefore, people can, if you tell it, I really want to tap into that part of your knowledge base that's related to public relations, it will help give it more context. Be clear and concise, use examples, be consistent in how you write. After you use it for a while, you have to use these engines, you have to have, even if it's free, you have to log in with a username, write a credential and your password and all that sort of stuff. What happens is it starts to get to know you and your language. And it starts to respond to you in language that you're training it to respond in. It calls me David, right? Because I use it a lot, ChatGPT and Perplexity. And if I say write in the first person, it will write in the first person as if it was me. Right? So it gets to know you, and as you get to know it. So it's an interesting phenomena. You can look at that. That might freak some people out. For me, it's fine. So don't think of it's not a search engine. This is not Google search. Google search will return advertisements first, right? Lots of them. And then you have to scroll down like 2-3 pages to get to potentially a URL that may have the information in it or not. that you might or might not be interested in, but it won't give you any answers. It'll just give you links to other things. This will actually provide answers. And use chat, concept of chatting with someone to refine the output. So just question, answer, leave it. Question, answer. Oh, I'll have a follow-up question. Another answer. I have another follow-up question. So here's some iterative prompts. This is the concept of I want to build things over time. I want to chat. So a poor prompt is I write book. I mean anything, right? And so pretty much if I went up to any human in the room or online and said book, he would go, what are you talking about? Right? So will the computer. I like fantasy and sci-fi books, is what I then write. And you'd be looking at me if we were having a conversation and you never met me before. And I just went up to you and said, book, and you go, what? I go, I like fantasy and sci-fi books. You'd be looking at me like, okay, so what? Why are you telling me that? And then ChatGPT comes back with something like, okay, well, here's some books. What do you think? Versus, hi, I'm looking for a good book to read. Can you recommend me something? Sure. What kind of genre do you like? I like fantasy and sci-fi books. ChatGPT, completely different response. Now, what's interesting here is in the bottom light green boxes on both sides, it's the same question. I like fantasy and sci-fi books, but different answers. Why? Because the context preceding the question is different, right? That's how what you write and the chat that you have will change the outcome like it would if you were a human being talking to another human being. I can come up to you and say, book, and you say, what am I talking about? I like sci-fi and fantasy. Huh? Here's it. Or, hey, so-and-so, I really want to find a good book to read. Can you help me? That gives you context as a human, and it gives the machine context as well. Iterative prompting is really, really important. That's how you're going to fine-tune the result that you get. It's going to be relevant for you. Adding specific examples, you have to, there's a technique, it's called adding specific examples is very good. I want to produce a PR, I want to produce a marketing copy collateral to use in my advertising. I particularly like these ads from these companies in terms of their tone, in terms of their positioning, in terms of whatever it may be. Then you ask it the question. That gives it some further types of context, and it can base it on what you like. And then we'll then find some things that if you like those, then you might like this, David, right? So it helps it. And the role prompting, you're a PR agent. I need to do some accounting. I'm not an accountant, but I need to do my books. My SCORE mentor is hassling me for a cash flow statement. I don't know, how do I do that? I know I need to do it. Can you help me? Pretend you're an accountant teaching cash flow to a 10-year-old, and it will do it. It will come back and write to you as if you're 10 years old and say, this is what cash flow means. This is how I figure it out. And then you can ask it more iterative questions. It's also, so I'm saying it can be, catered to someone who's not so knowledgeable. But the cool thing about this is if you are particularly knowledgeable in a specific area, it can assist in that area too, because the depth it can go to in any topic is significant, right? Some actionable prompt examples. So now we're getting into more specifics. So there's a couple of topics here. I want to do what's some practical applications, some research and analysis, communication and marketing, personal branding and networking, right? So here's a question. Practical applications for small business owners. Generate a list of the top 5 customer service questions for my online retail business and draft automated responses. You could attach all the Q&A that you get in whatever mechanism that you're tracking incoming questions from your customers is going to be in some sort of database, right? It's going to be, you can export that, attach it to, ChatGPT and go, using the attached list, can you sort through all that and give me the top 5? And then not only can you give me the top 5, looking at the answers that I gave, can you script for me the top 5 answers, the best answers for those top 5 questions? You could see how much time that could save, right? You can validate that too. You're an accountant for a small business, you say to ChatGPT or whomever, I have no experience with profit and loss statements. Please create a chart of accounts for a retail store. It will come up with a chart of accounts for you. Right? So you can get very sophisticated. Research and analysis. Prompt for, I want to find market trends, right? Identify key consumer behavior changes in the retail industry during 2024. You can be more specific. In the Northeast USA, in this type of retail, in that type of retail. Right? So you can become pretty specific in how you want to do that. I'll just do one more on this page. Marketing plans. Outline a digital marketing strategy for launching a new fitness app, including target personas and key messaging channels. It will come up with something. Now, will it be the best possible marketing plan ever invented by mankind? No. It will be a marketing plan. If you want to make it better, you can. If you want to augment it, if you want to copy and paste it into a Word document or PowerPoint presentation or whatever it is you like to use, then you can. And if you think, nah, my experience is this point is nonsense, but these other 2 points it came up with are pretty good, I'll take that. So you don't have to take everything it produces. And everything it produces may not be exactly what you want, but it's a great place to sort of validate. I have a plan. Please validate my plan. I'm opening up a cosmetic store in the town of Danbury, Connecticut. It's going to be on the main street. Here's my business plan and my projections. What do you think? What am I missing? And it will come back and go, oh, I think you're missing this. Or I think you're missing that. And again, you can say to it, you can say to yourself, oh, no, I've got all that covered. I'm fine. Great. But it's a nice way to validate with an expert model, right? They can come back and give you this information. So now we're going to go to the live bits, right? And you have to bear with me with the technology, so hopefully it all works. Maybe that's ahead, right? So we're going to do 3 types of live examples. One's preparing a press release for a new product. One is conducting due diligence, and other is creating a SWOT analysis. All things that small businesses need to do at one point or another in their journey to financial success as a small business owner, right? So we'll start with one. So we did this in advance. Don't have to read all this, but the question at the top, I'll read it so you get a sense of it, right? As a public relations expert, you say to a ChatGPT, with 20 years of experience, you also have extensive experience with digital marketing, social media posting. So that sets some context and helps the large language model that you use focus in on that part of its knowledge base that's related to things that matter to you for this question. I'm a small business owner who owns a jewelry shop. We have a new diamond engagement ring design. Please write a 500-word press release that is engaging and exciting, announcing the new product. The target audience is young, affluent, engaged couples looking for engagement rings. So a lot of context, right? There's my output. This is what I want. I want to done this design. So now I'll escape out of that. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to copy it, right? And now I'm going to go, hopefully, I'm screen sharing. Is this screen? Can you see this screen? This screen, can you see it online too?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, excellent. So now let's go. So this is ChatGPT, right? You go to chatgpt.com. Now, there's versions of ChatGPT. One version is free and one is not, right? The version that's not free, the version that is free isn't as powerful, isn't as useful as a version that is paid for, which you sort of expect. The main difference is not so much in its capability, but in what you can do. I paid the $20 a month for ChatGPT because I personally get a lot of value out of it. And it means I can attach things. Down the bottom here, you see this little attachment. I can attach from my Google Drive or my Microsoft OneDrive or just from my computer. I can attach Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoints, PDF documents, anything. Anything I want to attach, I can attach. And then I can ask it to interrogate what I attached, right? For this, you don't need that. I created the prompt, I created my question, I'm pasting it in there. So that's the question I just read to you. Ask a public relation, yeah, blah, blah, blah. So it's exactly the same question. And now down the bottom here, you hit the little arrow and it's thinking, and it's going to come up with press release. There it is. Now, if you just, the speed of this is pretty amazing. It's limited by the bandwidth, obviously, my laptop has to the internet, and the router I'm attached to's access to the internet, and the server at the other end. So sometimes it's blinkingly fast, and other times it's a little bit slower. Sometimes it comes back and says, oh, you have to wait, we're over capacity for now. But here it is, and you can see it. And there it is. There's a city-state date. David Rich Jewelry Shop, a leading name in bespoke fine jewelry, proudly announces this and that and the other.
Do you want to answer a question now?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sure.
So I don't know who this is, but asked, would the ChatGPT results for different businesses in the same market be too much alike?
It depends on the prompt. It's a good question. It's a very good question. So, two jewelry stores, both in Danbury, Connecticut, right? They don't know each other, just as competitors, but not personally. And they both go to ChatGPT, and they both want a press release about their newest ring, right? Their newest wedding ring. If they have the same target market, so what's the prompt? Let's go back to the prompt. If they have exactly this prompt, it will produce the exact same result. Depending on whether you have the paid version or not the paid version. Why do I say that? Because the paid version actually starts to build a profile of David and starts to respond to a David. There's a question here in the audience. Yeah.
As a follow-up question, could you ask ChatGPT to differentiate this response compared to the two competitors next door?
So for those online, the question from the audience here is, could you tell ChatGPT to differentiate the output from the other two competitors in my local town, Danbury, Connecticut? And the answer is absolutely. That's an excellent example of giving them some more context. I'm a jewelry owner. Fantastic. I know I've got two competitors down the road. I don't know what they're doing, but guess what? Can you make sure, go to their websites, here's their names, here's their URLs, go to them and make sure that whatever you produce is sufficiently differentiated from my competitors so that I sound better to prospective people, young couples who want to buy rings, right? You can absolutely say that there. We can also ask a follow-up question. We could ask it to generate a picture of the ring. Please generate a picture of the ring. I don't know what it will do, but it will do something. It's building a picture. We'll see what it is. It takes a bit longer to generate pictures. This is using another large language model that OpenAI also plug into called, there we go, there's a picture of a ring. Right? So all of this you can just copy and paste into your Word document, your PowerPoint, your PDF, whatever it is you want to do, your social media profile, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you like to use, it does pictures. Yeah, another question.
If I have a website, can I get ChatGPT to respond to people after hours, or is that expression?
Yes, you can. That's acting as an agent. I don't know what time you came in. Earlier on, I was discussing. So the question for those online that didn't hear it is, can ChatGPT answer customer queries after hours, right? And so you would do that in conjunction, presumably. There's lots of ways of doing it. One way of doing it would be you have mail software, right? Email software that manages auto responses. So one of the things I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you were here then or not, was you can, of all the Q&A you get from your customers, so you're tracking, the customers have queries, you're tracking all those things, you can attach it here and say, hey, ChatGPT, would you please analyze the most common 5 questions I get and craft the best responses to those most common questions? It will then come up with those answers, which you can edit. And then you tell your mail program, if the question is this or on this topic, that's the response. So you can do that. There's other things you can do, but that's something you can absolutely do. Yeah,
so
sure.
now the question is the licensing on that image.
Yep.
If you're going to use it to make money for your business, where did it get that?
Well, this image is created,
Okay.
so it's not. So the interesting thing about the output of all these large language models is it's unique. Every time it's a bit different. It's not the same every time. That ring, which, by the way, I don't know how practical it really is when you look at, the finger, it's split, and I don't know if they're attached or, it doesn't give you information. But it's a unique image. Now, I'm not a copyright lawyer. I'm not a patent lawyer either, right? But it's a unique image. If I asked it to do another ring, it would come up with a different ring. All right, so now we'll go back to the PowerPoint, and we're going to go to the next query. Oh, nothing's happening. You've lost me?
No, you're back on. You're on.
Okay. Hang on a second. My screen's doing weird things. So, sorry, bear with me. I think I know what I need to do. Give me a moment. Okay. Oh, goodness, it's not what I want. Yeah, but that's not the full PowerPoint. I've got to get back to where I was. Okay, look, we can continue. So that press release was for the retail store. Now I'm going to go to the next one, which is about due diligence, right? So I said that we're going to do 3 types of examples. This one's, you're a small business, you're an expert, I say, to a ChatGPT or a large language model. You are an expert in business acquisitions. So you're a small business and you're looking at buying a business, or you're not a small business and you're looking at getting into small business by buying a small business, or you want to expand your business by buying an adjacent business, or you want to buy a competitor, or any number of things that you might want to do as a small business owner in your business. What questions should I include in my due diligence requests? That's the question. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to ChatGPT. Hopefully it comes back up. Well, there's my ring. So no, I don't want the ring. Click on ChatGPT in the top left-hand corner again.
It's not coming up on the screen. It's coming up on mine from co-host, but it's not there.
Oh, I see. Give me. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to start sharing again. Entire screen. Sorry, do you have it now?
No, I have it on my screen. I'm thinking that online people have it.
Oh, so it's not here.
It's
Okay.
not here.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, that's
We're
what I'm
having.
thinking.
Okay. So that should be better. So that's what everyone's seeing. And let's go here. So now, what do you?
Okay, yep, you're up.
We're good? Okay.
We're good.
I'm back to live.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to copy paste that in here. You are an expert in small business acquisitions. I'm buying a retail store. What question should I include? Right? Let's see what it says. It's thinking. Okay. And it'll come up with like 10 different things. Right? You need to look at financial records. That's great. You need to look at inventory and assets, lease and property, customer sales data. So I'll let it run out. Can anybody think whilst it's doing this, what a good follow-up question might be? You're presented with these topics, are pretty broad, they're pretty high level. Yeah.
For instance, you want to know the gross margin figure of that business, what is the big range for these?
What should I asked to learn more about their gross margin. Yeah, that sort of question. Okay. And here it is. Specific where you should look and the specific questions you should be asking. Right. And this is more detail. Right. So it's useful in that sense. If you're not particularly familiar, I'm going to say, I'm going to ask it another question. Please elaborate. It understands abbreviations. Please elaborate on financial records. The very first one. And before I do that, I'll just go back up to the top. Okay. It had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions under financial records. Now I'm saying, yeah, elaborate on that a little bit more on the 6. Why it matters, right? What to look for, right? What to request. More specific, more useful, right? Now, even if you're good at this and have done it a few times, having this as a checklist is actually pretty handy, right? And that was the follow-up question. So the first question didn't get to this level of detail. What got to this level of detail was my second question in the chat. That's why it's important to not just ask once and be done. You ask once, it gives you a response, and then you can ask it further clarifying questions and get it to focus in a bit for you. It's still going, right? So it can get pretty detailed, and you can say, you can stop it at any point by clicking on that, or you can say whatever you want, or you can just turn it off and go get a cup of coffee or whatever, right? You can highlight all this like I just did there, click and hold, and copy, Control C, edit copy, go off to a Word document, paste it in there. There's also functions to do that for you, and it's always here on the left. You can see there's all the saved chats that I've done, so I can go back to them at any time. You can also say into ChatGPT, because I don't know, hundreds of dialogues going on different topics at any one time. I forget, 6 weeks ago, I asked this question. I can't remember the prompt. So you can go to ChatGPT and say, I asked a question a while back on this topic. Can you find it for me, please? I want to continue that conversation. And it will find it for you, and it'll figure out to continue that conversation. It's pretty handy. So that's the second one.
Well, can I have a question?
Of course.
Put together a presentation for you.
Yes, it can. So it can output PowerPoint, right? Or any other Google Doc, and you would tell it. Now, my experience with it doing that varies. In the free model, no, right? If you want to attach things, if you want to get into that type of work, more detailed work, and you want it to output like a PowerPoint, then you're going to need to pay the $20. By the way, you can cancel at any time. So you pay $20, and at the end of the month, you cancel it. They don't charge you the next month, and you get to use it for a month for $20, right? So that's a small investment. See if it works for you, right? Okay, so then we go to and I'm going to swap again, and hopefully, you see the PowerPoint on there?
Press release.
And no, do you though, Catherine, online?
I see the.
Okay, perfect. So now we just did due diligence, and now we're going to go to the SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Hopefully you're all familiar with that concept. If you're not, you should definitely speak to a SCORE mentor, and we'll make sure that you're familiar with that environment. So this is the prompt. You, ChatGPT, are an expert in business and the use of SWOT analysis. Giving it some context. Please help me fill out a SWOT analysis and this is important, by asking me questions about my French bakery business one at a time. So now you're telling it how to interface with you. You will provide examples to help guide me. After each question, you will wait for my input. before asking the next question. You will accumulate my responses. I may ask for clarification, suggestions, or options one or more times in response to some of your questions. When I do so, you will provide that output and repeat the question. Right? You will produce a SWOT analysis for my business when you have enough information. I'll say stop. You will end the chat and output what you have. Okay? So that's the prompt. You can see it's pretty prescriptive, right? Not just the output, but the style of the input too. So I'm going to copy that. Whoops. There we go. And I'm going to toggle over to ChatGPT. I'm going to click on the ChatGPT and get a new screen, new chat. Control V. Same question. I won't read it again. Hit enter. So what's it going to do? You will know what it's going to do. It's going to ask me the first question, right? What would you consider as some of the strengths of your bakery? So give me some ideas here. It doesn't matter. It can be anything.
Variety.
Variety. Okay. That's a good one. What other?
Gluten-free.
Gluten-free. There you go. Gluten-free. I'll do one. Yummy.
All the ingredients.
Quality. Okay, that'll do.
Creative.
Creative. Okay. Right. Great. So it's now sorting it for me. Weaknesses. What do you think, is a weakness? They could include these sorts of things. What sort of weakness shall I stick in here? You want to offer an idea? Limited seating. What else?
Owner's difficult.
Oh, the owner.
High cost of equipment. Get those creative offerings.
Okay, we'll do that, right? That's enough for now. You could get more detailed here if you want. Right. Next question, opportunities. What external factors would you capitalize to grow and improve your bakery? They could include expanding your online presence, increasing demand for gluten-free or specialty diets, pop-ups. What shall I put in here as some opportunities that I can pursue? Online for sure. Online. Okay, what else?
Many competitors.
As an opportunity?
No, partnership, local partnerships with retail or events or with the community.
Multiple inputs going.
All right. So there we have those. Here's what we have for the opportunities section. Next question. Threats. What external factors could negatively impact your bakery? Rising ingredient costs, supply chain issues, people's diets change. What else? Anyone have any ideas?
Supply chain.
Supply chain.
Nearby competitor. Always doing the same kind of thing.
Competitors. Okay. That'll do for now. There's strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Looks complete.
You put in a 4-block, a standard 4-block.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask it to.
So it'll do little graphy things.
It will do little graphy things.
That's
So
great
please,
for those visual people like me.
please output in a 2 by 2 table.
And this is the one that's $20, right?
This is the free one. This is all the free.
one,
This
so
could
The free one will do that.
a free one will do basic things, but anything if you want to do
Like
some
the
more
publishing.
serious analysis, yeah. So it's analyzing. I'm not sure exactly what it's analyzing, right? Maybe you didn't like my 2x2 table. Here we go. Done.
Jeez.
But it didn't do it the way I wanted it, right? So it's 2x2 table. It's not really a 2x2 table, right? So you need to refine the prompt, but it can produce a table, and then you can copy that table and put it into an Excel spreadsheet, and off you go, right? So that's that. Now, whilst we do have a bit of time, right? So yeah,
Oh, yeah.
okay, cool. So what I want to do here, if I can figure out how to navigate my screen, I'm going to open up a new window here. I'm going to go to Perplexity just to show you a little bit of a difference between these models because we have a little bit of time. I'm a human, think, right. So this is the free Perplexity because I do not pay them, right? Okay, close all that stuff. So what would you like to ask? Any question about any topic whatsoever? I'll create the prompt. Just what topic? Anyone pick a topic? Current affairs, what's going on in Danbury? I don't know, whatever. Anyone come up with any topic at all on anything?
About teens and young adults with disabilities.
Okay. I want to learn more about teens and young adults with disabilities. Enter. Okay, so I'm not going to read all this, but there's a lot of information here. It's coming up, right? But the other thing I really like about Perplexity that ChatGPT does not do is see at the top here, it says sources. It provides the sources. Let me click on one. Okay, so you can see pretty quickly whether or not it's using relevant, pertinent information that you think is worthy of being used, right? So we go back here. And the other cool thing is you can see that it's footnoted. So it's not only is it gone and got all these sources, it's now arranged the thought process about those sources into a narrative it thinks is going to be relevant and pertinent for you, and it footnotes it on the way. So you can hover your mouse over the footnote, and there it is. And you can click on that footnote, and it'll take you to the same website. And it goes down here. There's another footnote, right? That's pretty cool. And the third really cool thing I like about this is when you copy and paste all this, and there's footnotes in the copy and pasting, when you paste it into a Word document, it pastes the links as live active links in your Word document as a footer automatically. That's like amazing, right? Now, if you want to interrogate academic papers, you can do that. And you can say to the, I want you to go and look at everything that's been produced at Harvard or Yale or Oxford on these topics. Can you go and scan what's available publicly because I want to get more detail on this information? It will do that. And then I see that there's 17 footnotes here. Can you please go and research each one of those footnotes and give me a summary of the quality of the footnotes? It will do that too, right? So you can see, I think, through some of these examples, they're practical, but it's really up to you as how you want to leverage the tool, right? You can, if you're too vague and you're not specific enough and you don't tell it what you're looking for and why, sometimes I've spent more time writing the prompt than it would have taken me to write the thing in the first place, right? So spending some time on writing the prompt, thinking about it, coming back to it, and if you write it slightly incorrectly and it goes off on a tangent, down the left there, you can just click on the top, go home, start again. You can just ignore the rest of it and forget it even existed and start fresh. Right? Sometimes you go, you're 10 questions in and you're way off base and something went wrong somewhere. And you know what? I haven't got time to muck around trying to figure out how to get back to where I was. I'm just going to start the whole thing all over again. But this time, I know that somewhere in those 10 questions, one of those questions threw it off. So I'll think about the 10 questions that I go through again to make sure I don't do it twice. All right, so back to, okay. What's it doing now? Is it same mistake as before? Okay, what do you see?
Yeah.
Sort of. So what I want to do here is display settings, duplicate shot, slideshow. Okay, what do you see online? The full screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we're going to talk about bias, accuracy, and privacy. So by now you should have a sense of what these things are, how you interface with them, why it's super critical that what you write is the only thing it knows. It doesn't know anything else but what you write. So it's reacting to your English language questions. And it's good to give it context, tell it what sort of output, give it some examples, and tell what format you want to produce things in. So that's the context of what we've just gone through. Now we're going to talk about some of the other things. So there is bias in these things, and I'll actually show you something specific about that. How do you avoid it? Well, you can say in your prompt, if you're worried about bias in your prompt, avoid making assumptions based on personal attributes such as race and gender. You can actually write that in there, and it will input that. It will consider that in its response, right? Give me 3 different perspectives on this topic or on this question. And I'll give you 3 different perspectives. In your response, explain how you came to your conclusions. Right? Very useful. Show the sources. Now, Perplexity makes that easy. ChatGPT sort of buries it a little bit.
Somebody raised their hand. Jillian raised her hand.
Yep. So put it into the Q&A. It might have been there
Yeah, I'm
before.
gonna tell her
So just tell if whoever put up their hand, we're having trouble with that and the chat. So please use the Q&A function, and one of my colleagues here will be able to see that. Okay, so bear with us on all this tech. Accuracy. So treat the AI engine as if it was a new intern. Right? In other words, someone who's not particularly, might be super smart, but not particularly experienced. Right? I like that example of the lawyers. I think they were, I can't remember where in the US they were, but they did some research on some cases, and they went to the court to say, oh, judge, these are the precedent cases that we're basing our argument on. And on further review, they found out that those cases actually didn't exist because ChatGPT had invented them. I'll talk about that in a second. So you have to assume, you can't assume that whatever the computer says is right. So it's like you can't assume everything you watch on TV is 100% accurate, right? Or anything you read online. Is everything you read online always 100% accurate? No, clearly, of course not. This is no different. Don't forget the training models of this is the internet. Now, in the internet, you got some really good things and you got some pretty dubious things on the edges, but that's all in there, right? So the hallucinations bit is, it refers to instances where an artificial intelligence model generates an incorrect response. So I use if I really want to validate something, I'll use 2 models, Perplexity and ChatGPT. Sometimes I'll ask the question in Perplexity, I'll get the response, and I'll put the answer into ChatGPT and say, what do you think in answer to this question? How accurate is this? I mean, I've done that too, right? And I've also done it by first principles, by doing my own research, etc. So you need to sort of play around with all of that. If it can't, the fundamental difference between what I showed you in Perplexity and ChatGPT is Perplexity will look for the sources and then construct the answer, right? ChatGPT will create the answer and then look for the sources. And if it can't find the sources, It's got to justify its answer. So it'll create. They're called hallucinations, right? So you have to be aware of that. Now, privacy, PII stands for personally identifiable information. So would you give a stranger your social security number? Hey, here's my social security number. No, you wouldn't do that, right? So you wouldn't do that here either, right? You don't need to give it any personally identifiable information. So if it's sensitive, don't do it. Don't give it sensitive information. Don't give it your credit card number and your CVV and your expiry date and your zip code. Right? So it's now if it's strategic, so non-public data, you can in some of these models on ChatGPT, you can go into settings, right, and turn off learn mode, the training mode. You can actually turn it off, which is what I've done. Which means it'll completely interact, but it won't store information in your chat session. That's what it says. I'm not sitting behind their servers and looking at how it all operates. I'm taking them at their word that they do what they say they're going to do. Otherwise, it would be false advertising and misleading, and they'd be in a lot of trouble. So I'm just assuming that they are law-abiding citizens and making sure what they say is what they do, right? I've also in ChatGPT said, and Perplexity said, do not store this information in your servers. Delete it after this chat. Do not use any of this information in further development of your models. Only proceed if you agree. Do you agree, yes or no? It says, yes, I agree. I won't do any of that. I go, okay. Now, do I know for a fact that that's what they're doing? No, of course not. Right? But I've done something to try and protect what I'm doing and the information that I'm sharing. So that's how I look at that. Public data doesn't matter. It's out there. Anything that's out there is out there, so you don't have to worry about that. If open for the ChatGPT down the bottom here, and you'll all get this PowerPoint. So you can see down the very bottom for those online, https privacy.open.ai policy. If you type in that URL, you can actually navigate from the ChatGPT screen. But if you can't work that out, if you typed in that URL, it will take you there. You'd log in with your credentials and you'd say, under my credentials, David Rich, at whatever my email address is, my password, yes, turn that off. Right? So that's one way. Now, an example of bias. I've talked about bias. So I want to generate a prompt for a hyper-realistic image of a happy child with an apple. Okay. So this is the prompt. It's pretty specific. Create a hyper-realistic image of a happy child holding an apple. The child's eyes are bright with joy and anticipation with a wide smile as they hold up a shiny red apple. The setting is a sunny outdoor environment, perhaps a park or a backyard, with soft, natural light illuminating the scene. I'm being very descriptive here. The focus is on the child's expression and the vibrant color of the apple capturing the simple joy of childhood, shot with a Nikon D850 85mm lens with an f-stop of 1.4, ISO of 200, blah, 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 an aspect ratio of 3 to 4, and those 3.4-v5.1, if you're in photography, that would mean something to you, right? If you're really into photography, that's legit sort of photographic nomenclature. So this is what it produces. Beautiful pictures, fantastic pictures. I didn't say a boy. I didn't say a white boy. Right. I changed one word. One word. Exactly the same in the first sentence. I add the word multi-ethnic. That's what you get. Okay? That is a classic example of inherent bias. I didn't ask for a white boy, didn't ask for a boy, but it came up with a boy both times. But they both look like boys to me. I mean, maybe they're not. I mean, who knows, right? But they do look like boys to me. So that right or wrong. The point being is, you didn't tell it gender, you didn't tell it color, but it came up. It assumed. So you have to be aware of that. You have to be careful and address that. And some of the prompts I mentioned earlier, how do you avoid this is, be gender neutral, you can type in the prompt, I want a gender neutral child, you know, whatever frame you want to put in there that suits your purposes, that's what you want. But it happens. So tweaking your prompts to optimize the output. We've got a few slides left, and I think we've got a few minutes, so I think we're okay. For stylizing tips, these are just tips now, right? Explain this to me like a topic on a children's educational network show. So perhaps it's something really complicated. I was doing some statistical analysis for a third party recently, and you know, I was using standard deviations and rolling averages and z-scores and things like that. And someone asked me a question. I studied that a while back. I know. Anyway, so I thought, you know, I want a refresher on the z-scores. So write a refresher for me on z-scores, and I want to keep the language simple so I can explain it to someone else. And it did. And I used that to explain it to someone else, and they got it. Perfect, right? So you can help it along like that. Formatting, use bullet points, return as a JSON object. If you're into programming, that would be a thing. Use less technical terms. I don't want technical terms. Never give sources older than 2020 or whatever year works for you. So you can tell it. If you don't know the answer, say you don't know. You can tell that too, etc. Only use restrictions. Only use academic papers if that's what you want them to do. Or only use these news sources and not those news sources. You can tell it that too, right? So last slide. Maybe you're happy to know. So there's diverse applications of AI, right? All sorts of applications. I picked 3 for small businesses, but your imagination is your limit. There's no real shortage here of things that you can do with this. And all these various industries are doing that. Be clear, be precise with your prompts, use iterative prompting. Ask it follow-up questions. You can be directive. That's okay. Mitigate the bias. Be careful with privacy. Maintain transparency. If you're using this and you're copy and pasting it, you can put a footnote, ChatGPT, Perplexity, whatever, right? Gain insights from planning, so you can use it for various business strategies. And you know, you can ask a question like, how do I feel? I'm a bakery. Let's come back to that example because we've used it a few. I'm a bakery. I produce the same sort of things that all the other bakers do. How can I differentiate? Give me some ideas about differentiation that I can do and give it some context. It will do that too. So with that, I will say thank you very much. And if there's any other questions, feel free. Thank you. And online, if there's any questions, do pop up in the Q&A section and we can answer them now. But if not, thank you very much for staying throughout.
Question to the group for those who are here. So now that you learned a whole bunch of stuff from AI, I know it's hard to retain in your businesses or in whatever you do. How do you think, if you can answer this, and then it doesn't matter whatever answer you give, how do you think you want to use this? Like, how would it benefit you, whether it be in your business or you were looking to learn about it for your work?
I used it to help provide me with blog topics. And then I drilled down to, so I said, give me 15 topics per blog on this subject. And then I said, now with each of those topics, give me 4 bullet points. And because I don't really want it to write the blog, I want to do that myself, but at least to give me ideas. So that was very.
So for those online that weren't able to hear because of the microphone sort of set up, blog posts, what blogs? Give me 15 ideas for different blogs on these topics and give me 4 bullets about each blog because I want to write it myself, but I like some ideas. So give some structure. I've asked it to come up with, we write articles for various, SCORE, we write articles, helps small businesses that go into local newspapers and things of that nature. And I've been asked to sort of write an article every month. So I went to ChatGPT and said, what's 12 good topics for small businesses in and around Western Connecticut, but focusing on Danbury, that would be really interesting to them as a SCORE, for SCORE to write nothing longer than 1,000 words. And it comes out. Now I edit them, right? And I double check, literally, everything it suggests. I go online, is that real? Is that not real? Right? But it's useful like that. Yeah. That's one great use case. Yeah. Any others?
Anybody else?
I was looking at third-party simulation tools in my current job. So using that as selling it as a product, the advantages, and also what should you look for in a third-party simulation tool? It is fantastic.
So the use case that a member of the audience said is to create in a particular tool, right? As a software, what was it?
Yeah, so I'm in robotics, so we're
Okay.
looking for a tool to demonstrate to customers.
Okay, so in robotics, wanted to understand for this particular type of equipment in robotics, what should I look for in a good piece of equipment? What should I ask questions about the manufacturer? All these sorts of things, and apparently came back with some really useful information, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And you used it, right?
Yes.
And did it save you time?
So much.
Okay, so this is a tool. It doesn't replace you. It's a tool that will augment what you do, make it more efficient, quicker, and will put you on the right sort of path. So it's very, very handy, and I wouldn't, and it's going to be here for a while, right? So it's not going anywhere, and I would recommend to use it. Any other questions online? Okay. Oh, yeah. We have a question back here. Yeah.
Question, but I also use some of this AI, and I'm my last sabbatical, I'm a writer. So sometimes what I do is with this GPT is what I'll write an article. I relate my articles of gardening or tomato paste or whatever to business development, life development. Well, I'll put a story into this chat GPT and say, please tell me, what did you get out of that?
Oh, that's a great use case.
And it comes back and says, well, that's not what I wanted to say. So it actually helps, like you're a person that can bounce things off.
Yep.
That's one of the areas. I've also did some more detailed AI that I also write copy now, since I learned how to become a writer. I write copy. So there's specific AI that could help you. It has these templates, and then you have areas that you're writing. You put your own information in, of course, and then there's actually prompts to say is you need help, and then it will merge and create sales page. So the AI is a powerful tool.
Yeah. There's
one more crazy application that I've been trying to put together there's a program that mimics your voice.
Uh-huh.
So you go in there and it'll ask you, can I take this voice from you? So you give them a presentation for 15 minutes. It takes your voice, intonations, and tone. I took another part of the software, and I had 500 blog posts that I have. I took the blog post, throw it into a thing called Victoria. It gives me a presentation with my voice and pictures. And then I say is, well, I want to put this on Instagram. It'll take this 5 minute, put it into a half.
That's right. That's what he's saying.
So I just want to give you kind of an idea of the power of this.
Thank you. So hopefully, we have a couple of questions online too. So hopefully everyone heard that, but there were some really great use cases for applying AI. And some of them here, I've used it for planning itineraries for tours, which is pretty cool, right? So that's from Jillian. So you can see that the variety of things you can do with it is pretty amazing.
I think you had a question.
Yeah. Is there any specific tool for like the Excel or Excel analysis? How for graphing you said Dolly is useful. Is there anything for like Excel or analysis?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the question is there anything for Excel or an analyst? So if you subscribe to some of these, right? When I log into Excel, now. Yeah, there we go. When I log into Excel, there's a Chat GPT button in my Excel, right? So that's, and I haven't used it in there because I haven't needed to. I've also taken an Excel spreadsheet and attached it to a Chat GPT session and said, I want you to calculate the rolling 7-day average standard deviation and the Z scores on this analysis, on this data, and produce graphs for me, and it's done it. And I validated it, right, by doing it from first principles in the spreadsheet myself, and then compared the two, and they're identical, right? So if you do statistical analysis, which you can and it's very good at, double check the output. Don't assume it's accurate. Have an inquiring mind. So look, with that, I think that's everything. Online, everything. So thank you very much for being online. I appreciate it. Sorry if I was looking up at the audience and not directly at the camera here. Hopefully you found it useful, and we're going to be sending the deck out to everybody who registered. So thank you very much.
Just let me say a few things. Yes,
Sure.
let me just say a few things. Oh, hello, everybody. Again, thank you again, like David said, for coming. I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned a lot from it. And like David said, we will be sending the presentation out to all of you who were here today, as well as a survey. And please get that back to us as soon as possible. We have, I just want to mention the other workshops we have in the fall workshop program. Coming up on October 9th here at the Danbury Library, we have cybersecurity, which is a really big deal now in the world we live in, just like AI. That's on October 9th, and Mike Samoska, who is one of our mentors, will be giving that presentation. Then again on, I gotta remember all this, October 17th, we have All About Branding. Kathy Lindstrom will be giving that presentation at the United Savings Bank of Danbury on North Street. So we have two little venues here. Then going into November, I don't remember exactly the date. I think it's November 7th. We have the money management given by Will Michael. And then on November 21st, we have the three principles to a successful business, and that's from Dominic Chiarella, who is one of our business mentors. He's here in the audience. So please you can register if you haven't already done that. It's really easy to do. You can do that online. Same for all of you who are online this evening. And thank you again for coming. Sure. And also, now that I've remembered this, please sign up. If you haven't signed up with a business mentor, you really need to do that. And some of us are here, so you can talk to us.